Welcome to Amazing Stories of Amazing Grace. I'm your host, Chester Stanley, and we're delighted to have in the studio Sera Lockington. Welcome, Sera.
Hi, Chester. Thank you for having me here.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and we've had some wonderful people who have told us some very wonderful stories in relation to their journey in terms of faith. And so we want to hear about yours today. And why don't we go back and start with your beginnings? Tell us where you come from.
I'm from Fiji. I was born in Fiji. I grew up in Fiji and went to school in Fiji. I attended Catholic schools from primary till I reached high school. Okay. Yeah, and I come from a little island. I didn't grow up in the city. I come from one of the little islands in Fiji.
Okay, yeah, right. Beautiful part of the Pacific.
Yep.
And Sera, in terms of your childhood, happy childhood?
Yes, I had a very good childhood. I had wonderful parents.
It sounds like a pretty idyllic place to be brought up, in a little island in the middle of the Pacific, and lots of swimming. And
yes, that's all we did as a kid. We swam whole day, and I had older brothers and sisters who did most of the work. And because I was...
It was helpful.
Yes. I was the third youngest, and there was myself, my younger brother and sister, and we just played a lot. But when school time came, I had to go to the city for school. So I never saw my parents for a year until Christmas, and I had to stay with relatives. Was
that when you were in primary school, or was that high school?
From primary school. When I was 6 years old, I left home. Right. To go to the main island and to go to school until Christmas, till the 8 weeks holiday comes, and I would go home.
Okay. And your family, were they Christian in terms of their faith?
My parents, Catholics.
Yes.
Yep. And like I said earlier, like we lived in this little island, we actually have a church on it, a Catholic church, built on the land, and the priest would come out twice a year. And Sunday, we all just get dressed and go to church. It's like a normal thing that we do every Sunday, going to church. And that's why my dad sent me to Catholic schools till I grew up. But and when I would go home for Christmas, and my dad and mom's always there waiting until the 8 weeks was over, and then I would have to come back to the city, and it was hard for me to leave them.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
As a little girl.
Yes.
In primary school.
Yeah. As I grew older, I got used to living away from home for the whole year. Yep.
But it's a happy childhood. And were you telling me that during your childhood you had a friend and she took you to her church?
Yes. When I left the island, and I met this friend when I lived in the city, in the main island, where I lived with my aunt and uncle. I made friends with this little girl next door. That when I was about 9 years old, and we would play after school and on weekends, and especially on Friday evenings. And she would invite me over to her house, and I would see her mum cooking, preparing food, and I would ask questions like, "Why are you cooking so early?" Because when I, as old as I am now, when I look back, it makes me think. At that time, I didn't know why she was cooking dinner early. And she would tell me about the Sabbath. She said, "I have to cook early before sunsets." But I didn't know what it meant. And I would just go on playing. And then one day she asked me if I wanted to come to church with her. And I said, "Okay, I'll come." So I went with the mom and dad. I went a few times, about 3 times at least. And the dad would tell me, "Saturday is the day for church." And I said, "Wow." I didn't know that because I was only young until I look back now. Yeah.
But that was in the back of your mind, this experience.
Yes, I remembered that.
Yes, for sure. So you get married in Fiji?
Yes.
Go to high school and get married?
I got married, and I thought that was it, everything, Yes. This is how my life's going to be, and I thought I was going to be happy. And after the first year, I had a very abusive husband who drank a lot. And he used to, he was a musician. He used to work in a band. And I had all these ideas of leaving him and going back home, but I never did, because I'm thinking if I leave him, I wouldn't know how I'm going to bring my child up. That's when I had just one. I didn't want to take the burden back to my family, so I kept hanging on. And then I had another one. That's just how it went. And then until years went by, and then I ended up having 3. But I wasn't happy. And then I met a few friends of mine. They said, come to our church. So I started following them to different churches. I just went for like I think I was searching for something.
Okay.
But I wasn't sure then.
For sure.
Yeah.
But even back there. So I suppose on the surface, many people looking on would have said, you know, you're happily married, your husband's involved in the entertainment industry, but inside you weren't...
I wasn't happy. I was hurting inside. Like I wouldn't talk to people about it. Like if I meet a friend of mine, I would say, oh, like we'll just talk normal, like everything's okay at home. Like I wouldn't tell them what's really going on. And even if I know if I had left him, people would think, oh, we didn't know something was going on in that marriage.
Yes.
Because everything looked so good.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a nice home, nice kids, but they didn't really know what was actually happening in the home.
Okay, so it was a very tough time for you.
Yes.
So what happened after that, Sera?
But it took me, I thought about leaving my husband when I first had the first child, but I never spoke, I always kept it in me. And then I decided to, I met a cousin of mine who was a Seventh-day Adventist. She actually married a Seventh-day Adventist, and she said she'll help me by taking the 2 kids for me until I got myself sorted out and find a job. And I was happy about that. So she took 2 of my kids with her till I got myself settled. And then, and then my kids knew about the faith, about Sabbath, and they were about 9 years old then, 8, 9.
Back then, this relative takes your children.
Yes.
And she is part of an Adventist family.
Yeah, she was helping me out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're still with your husband?
No, I've left him.
Okay.
She took the, she told me she'll help me with the kids when I leave him, so that I don't have too many, because I needed to find a place to live and needed to find work too, so I'd be able to get on my 2 feet and then,
And you're still living in Fiji
Yes.
at this point?
Yes.
Yep, very good. Well, look, what we might do is we'll just pause and leave the story there, and we need to go to a break. And I'm sure you are enjoying Sera's story, and we'll be back very soon. Welcome back to Amazing Stories of Amazing Grace, and we're here with Sera. Sera, you've just been sharing with us a pretty tough time in your marriage. 2 of your children go to live with relatives. You left your husband at this point in Fiji?
Yes, I did. And I managed to get a job. I managed to find a little place, and then I got a job at this insurance company. And while I was working there one day when I was at work, there was someone, I could hear someone asking for me at the reception. And I could hear it from where I was sitting, and I wondered who it was. And then the girl buzzes me and says, there's a man here who wants to see you, and I had no idea who he was. And then, so I came up to the front, and he says, don't you know who I am? And I said, no. He said, I'll be back at 5:30 to pick you up. And I said, no, I'm not, because I don't know who you are. You're just a stranger. So that was okay. So off he goes. He calls me back. He said, do you know who I am? But the whole day I was troubled, because I didn't know who he was. And I had these initials in my head of his name, of this someone that I met 20 years ago, 20 years earlier. And so he rang me up, and I gave the initials on the phone. I didn't want to say the name because I could be wrong. He said, oh yeah, that's me. And he said, all right, I'll be there at 5:30 to pick you up. And made him show me his driver's license. It was him. That was fine. So he had this question if I wanted to come to Australia. He was a distant relation of mine. If I wanted to come to Australia, I said, yeah, and I just laughed about it because that's only a dream for me to come to Australia. And at that time, I was having, even though I had left my husband, I was having terrible times. He would find where I lived and he would kick the door down looking for me. He was that sort of man.
To try and get access to you?
Yes. Yep. He'd come drunk, I lived in fear. No matter where I lived, he'd find me because Fiji is not a very big place. People know each other. And I had to do something. There's no way I could live there. So when this cousin of mine asked me if I wanted to come to Australia, I said yes. But deep down in me, I wasn't sure. And then, well, he came home for dinner and he was leaving 2 days later and he said, get your passport ready, I'll help you come to Australia. And he did. I had a big mail and he did, and that's how I'm here today.
Oh,
he sponsored me, yeah.
Okay.
Me and the kids.
And so you've lived in Australia for some years?
Yes.
Yep, very good.
Yes.
And life in Australia, how's it been for you?
It was really hard when I first came here, 'cause not knowing no one. And I had to get my kids to school. I lived in a one-bedroom flat. And I remember going to the op shops to buy a few things that I needed. And I didn't have any qualifications in any other areas of work. And that's the same work I do now. I work with disabilities. People with disabilities, I help people with disabilities. I feed them and shower them and do things for them. And that's all I knew how to do, and I didn't really need qualifications to get a job in that. And that's how I started. And as my kids grew older and they left home, they got their own life now. And I never went to church. I never ever went to church when I came to Australia, never did. Until one day when my daughter rang me.
Yes, yes, we'll come to that a little later. So, yeah, so you're working, your kids are growing up. Life was pretty okay?
Yes, was good, yeah.
Yep.
Was very good, yeah. I just go to work, come home, and just normal, nothing, like I didn't have any plans or, but I've always wanted to go to church. I knew that I always talk to my kids about that, that we need to find a church to go to. I've always spoken to them about that, and they know.
Yes, interesting, yeah. So, Sera, you're here in Australia. How did you make contact with the Adventist Church?
One day, I got a phone call from my daughter. She says, Mum, she goes. And I said, what's wrong? I thought something was wrong. There's a man that knocked on my door. He's selling Christian books. And I said, yeah, what's good about that? And she goes, he's a Seventh-day Adventist. And I said, really? And they said, yeah, and I bought some books off him and he's coming back. And I said, did you get his phone number off him? And she said, yes. So I went off to her place.
Excuse me, were you excited? When
Yes, I was.
Why was that?
Because he was a Seventh-day Adventist, because I always wanted to go to Adventist church, because deep down in my heart, I've always believed in the Sabbath. Okay. I've always have, from the little experiences I've had back home.
Keep going.
And so I got the number of her, and I rang Joe. I said, what's his name? He says his name's Joe Paola. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his surname right. Okay. And so I rang him up, and he said he was on holidays and he would see me in a few weeks. So he did come to see me, and we shared and we talked and he prayed, and I told him about everything that was going on in my life. And but I was struggling, though. I mean, life was good, but I was struggling at the same time.
In what sense were you struggling?
Financially.
Yes.
Financially,
okay.
and yep.
Yep. Right.
And so he said that he lives a bit far from where I am. I lived in Broadmeadows then, and he said, I'll refer you to Lauren Pratt. So I waited. I wonder what's happened to Lauren Pratt. So one day there was a knock on my door, and it was Lauren. He came to visit me, and he started giving me some videos to watch, search videos. So I started watching search videos, and he would share a lot of things with me and visit me often. Yeah.
Okay. And did you enjoy the videos?
Yes, I did.
Yes. Yes. And was it new material for you, or I suppose a lot of it was new material for
They
you?
were all new for me. Like I knew that Saturday was, what interested me was I knew that Saturday was the right day to go to church, but I didn't know it was sunset to sunset. I never knew that until I watched the church video. But I can't remember which video it was, but
Yes.
it talked about, it was from when sunset, so I never knew that. Yeah.
So you were studying the Bible as well as
Yes.
watching the videos?
And I started reading my Bible a lot, because when Joe first came and visited me, I bought a Bible off him.
That's
the
right.
first thing I
Remember you
did.
telling me. So you bought a Bible?
Yes, I
off
bought a Bible off him.
We'll pause the story right there, Sarah, and we need to go to a break. We trust that you're enjoying Sarah's story, and after a brief break, we'll be right back. Welcome back, and we're talking to Sera Lockington about her journey to faith. Sarah, you're watching these DVDs and you're studying the Bible. You look back upon that as a good time?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is. When I look back, from the time Lauren came to visit me and shared with me, and he would come at least once a week, because I didn't live far from where he was, so he would come around often, and then he invited me to his cell group. He has a cell group at his home on Wednesday nights, and I would attend that, but I never went to church. And I said to him that I didn't have any proper clothing to wear to church.
Okay, because I remember Lauren sharing with me that he asked you to come to church
Yes,
many times,
yes.
but you wouldn't go.
I wouldn't go.
And that was the reason?
Yes, I told him I just had jeans. I didn't have any proper church
Okay,
clothes.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's got to do with when I used to go
Yes.
to church, we had to wear.
Very best.
Yes, yes. I still had that.
Yes.
There's a few little things that I've thrown away,
Yes.
which I had
so
with
you
me.
got some clothing?
Yes. And so this particular evening, I was reading the Bible and I came to Exodus 20, and came through the 10 Commandments. I was just going through them. Don't know why, but I did that night. And I came to Commandment 4, remember, keep the Sabbath holy. So I picked up the phone and I rang my daughter. I said, you got to get dressed, we got to go to church tomorrow.
Oh, just like that?
Just like that. So I went. Lauren didn't know that, but I remember him telling me where the church was, that I'll see the sign on the side of the road. So off we went. I picked her up and we went. And there he was, shocked with all that. Not shocked, he was so happy. He was so happy to see us coming in. And we've never stopped going back to church since that day.
Very good.
Till today, because
That's wonderful.
we had so much love.
I was going to ask you, what was it that
Yeah.
attracted you? What made it such a wonderful experience for you going to church?
I remember going in there and experiencing love, like everyone knew me, even though I've never met them before.
Right.
Like they greeted me and welcomed me, and it's like I've known them for a very long time, which I've never got anywhere else. It was full of love, and that's what made me keep going back and back and back.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. And so Sarah and your daughter was happy to come to
Yes,
church too?
yes. She
Okay,
was,
because
yeah.
she'd been obviously studying too, had she?
Yes.
Yes. And I gather somewhere down the track there was a baptism?
Yes. Then Lauren did more. We did more Bible studies with Lauren, and my daughter was doing the same studies as me, but at different times. And so we decided we were going to get baptized. And we told Lauren we want to get baptized, and we got baptized. My daughter and I, we got baptized together.
Pretty happy day.
Yes, very good.
Yes.
Very good. And we had a lot of visitors, a lot of support from people. And I wrote out a poem that I read on my baptism,
Okay.
which I was all emotional and I couldn't read it, and Lauren and I were
So there
fighting.
were many tears
I
running
had tears
down.
going down my eyes, and Lauren and I were fighting for that piece of paper because he thought I couldn't read it because I was all going like that.
Yes.
So I grabbed it off him again because I wanted to do it myself.
Yes, lovely.
Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. And so, Sera, I believe you're attending church. You've joined the church. I believe that you were quite upfront in terms of your witness, and you shared with, was it your neighbour that you shared
Yes.
with?
Where I lived at that time, there was a man he was my neighbour, and I knew the guy before he moved where I moved. And somehow he sees me going to church, and he knows, because I say hello to him. The houses are very close to each other. And then he says to me, "Have you met my daughter?" And I said, "No." I knew he had a daughter, but I've never met her. He said, "I think I should ask her to come and see you." For some reason, he said that to me. And I said, "Hey, she's welcome to come anytime." He was a bit worried about the daughter. She was not doing the right things, doing drugs and things like that. So she did come and see me. So I started sharing with her. She shared all her experiences with me, and I said to her, "Come to my church." And she looked at me and said, "You come to my church, and God loves you."
Good.
And she did. She came to church, and she's baptized now. And she shared with another friend. She told another friend of hers, so she told her friend, "Come to my church," and she's there now.
And she's there too?
She's there too, the friend,
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It must be very lovely for you to see these
Yes.
people sitting in church with you.
Yes.
Because of your work.
Yeah.
So you're obviously heavily involved in your church?
Yes, I am. And I remember this particular Sabbath, there was a sermon on reaching out to the community. And that sermon really touched me. And now every second Sunday of the month, I do a barbecue, like a sausage sizzle, in this area in Broadmeadows where it's a very rough area where people live. So I do that every second Sunday of the month,
So
for people, just to reach out to them and tell them there's people out there that loves you.
So you set this up in the community somewhere?
Yes.
And you make a barbecue?
Yes.
So how many people do you get come along to that?
80, sometimes a bit more, yeah. Started off very quiet, the kids would come out, you wouldn't see any adults.
That's right.
And
the children were attracted to the free barbecue.
And now the adults. It's a very rough area. And now as soon as the day comes, they would come out of their homes, and they would come and they'll...
You obviously have some people helping you. I mean, to feed, 80 people with a nice barbecue, that's a big job.
I started off using my own money, and I remember talking to my boss one day and telling her, she asked me to work on a Sunday, and I said to her, "I can't because I've got this barbecue on." She rings me back 2 days later and tells me, "Mum and I were talking last night, and we're thinking of giving you some money towards your barbecue every month."
Oh, wonderful.
And I said, "Thank you, Lord."
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
So, yes, and I can see from the big...
So I use that for my meat, for my sausages and things.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I can see from the big smile on your face, Sera, that you get a lot of satisfaction out of this. Yeah. So just in closing, you're happy with the decision you've made?
Yes, I'm very happy with the decision I've made.
You seem to have a lot of joy on your face.
Yes, I do, and I'm very happy, and I like to live the way Jesus would want me to live.
Thank you.
And to share His love to everyone, like I do, reaching out to the community to show people that Jesus loves them too. There's people out there, they don't have to live and think that that's all there is to life. There's more to life than...
Yes.
Yep.
Very good. Well, it's been great to talk with you today, Sera, and we appreciate having you come here to the studio. And I'm sure you've enjoyed Sera's journey to faith, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on the Hope Channel.